Dave Bloom here. Check it out. Today we are talking about the focal point here about what goes on in grooves. Now I know we say in the drum world that this drives that pulse, that's your heartbeat pumping, and your snare drum stays consistent on the 2 and the 4 when we're talking about those backbeats. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the variations that can actually drive a lot of what's going on here. So we can really create a really even pulse, especially when we're playing with syncopation and doing a lot of stuff with our bass drum. So today the focus is really what can we do with the hi-hat. And a very, very basic starting point is simply taking those 8th notes. For those of you who are not familiar with musical terms, those are the notes that you're constantly playing on the hi-hat that are consistent and playing over what's going on here. What we're going to do is, out of each one of those notes, every other one we're going to accent or play harder, and then the opposite of that, we're going to play softer or ghost noted. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to count this out for those of you not familiar. This is a great way to pick up the counting. So when I'm playing these notes and I'm driven by 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm going to play and in between each of those counts. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and notice what's going on. I'm playing on the numbers, I'm playing harder, and between those numbers, the ands, I'm playing softer. So I can do that fast. I can play it slow. And what's cool is that kind of drives and creates a pulse of what's going on here. So I'm going to use a reference point with the bass drum and the snare drum for a lot of this stuff. I'm going to do 1 and 3 on the bass drum, 2 and 4 on the snare. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, that's going to kind of be the reference point, and I'm going to do different variations. So first, let's do what we just talked about. We're going to accent on the numbers, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's going to lay over what's going on here between the bass and the snare. And between that, I'm going to play ghost notes or softer so that it has a dramatic difference. And this really is different from the ear. Now listen to what we would normally do if everything was very consistent and even. Now the difference. Now that takes even the very basic of drum beats and really jazz it up with some really cool groove and feel to it. So next thing we're going to do to jazz it up even more is we're going to play some different variations. So I'm going to pepper in some 16th notes. I'm going to play 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Now I'm not going to worry about the accents as much, just the kind of presence of what's going on here with this. Now, of course, I can use that same idea that we did for the last piece, and I can accent it. So I can play the 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and really use, again, this dynamic difference. Okay? Now I can flip that and playing 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, and now I can play 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN. And again, for those of you not familiar with musical terms, I'm going from playing 1 slower note to 2 faster notes, as I did earlier. Now I'm going to flip that. I'm going to play the 2 faster notes. We call those 16th notes to an 8th note. So 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN. If you play by ear, here it goes. Now what I'm doing in this, I'm creating still that pulse, that accent that we were doing at the very beginning of all this on the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I'm playing every note sequentially after a little bit quieter. So I'm playing 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN. What's really happening here on each of those beats, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm creating this accent to have that pulse. Now this is a really easy way to take any drum beat that you have and jazz it up a little bit. Just this tiny little tweak. So I can go from this and add that little kind of just tweak and accent the first part and ghost note the second. What's really cool, the flow of this, and obviously it's something you have to get used to, dynamically changing your what we call heights, right? Your low end, or your ghost note, or your medium end, which would be kind of standard, or your accents when I'm coming up much higher. And dramatically different, I'm going from high to low. And with the motions going through my wrist, I can kind of flow like this, and there's this moving feel. It's almost like the wheels of a train flowing like this, and you can kind of see the iron that would connect all the wheels on a train. In this case, I'm connecting my hand to the hi-hat. Okay, so what happens too on the high stroke, and I'm coming away on the low stroke, it makes it easier to go from accent to ghost note. I know that sounds weird to think of it like a train, but I'm really kind of imagining that this motion like this. Or I could take what Todd Suckerman talked about and talk about the fact that it's almost like cutting your steak. Although I'm not quite bowing like this or playing my violin, right? I'm kind of getting a little bit more of a hammering motion. So anyway, so we've got all those different variations I can play. Those accent differences, I can start adding some 16 of them, or flipping, or a combination of all of that, right? I don't even have to play on the beat, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can play the ands. Okay, so I can do a lot with that dynamically. I just want you to experiment. I want you to mess around with stuff. Start with this basic. Explore some of the different patterns, and just kind of have fun with it, mess with it. Play all 16. Hear that little combination in there? All of it. So just a lot that you can do, but just explore with this stuff and take all of your regular drum beats you're playing and add some flair with it. Add some dynamic change on the hi-hat. And just have fun with it, and it'll sound cool. All right? I'll see you next time. Dynamic change. And you can try that on the ride cymbal. See you next time, guys. Take care.